Picture this. Night has fully settled over an ancient African savanna, and a small group of humans huddles close around a dying fire, rationing the last of their fuel supply until morning. Somewhere out in the darkness, a low, rumbling growl rolls across the grass, followed by dead silence. Every single person around that fire knows exactly what that silence means. Something massive, powerful, and hungry is out there calculating whether tonight is the night to test just how well that fire actually works as protection. This wasn't a rare occasional scare. This was essentially every single night for ancient humans across enormous stretches of our species' history. We spend so much time discussing how ancient hunted, gathered, and built communities that we sometimes forget a terrifying truth. For most of human existence, we weren't always the apex predator confidently standing at the top of the food chain. Plenty of animals looked at ancient humans and saw dinner. So let's rank the absolute worst predators our ancestors had to survive, and figure out exactly how a relatively slow, clawless, fangless species somehow managed to avoid becoming a permanent menu item. Let's start with what might be the single most psychologically terrifying predator ancient humans ever faced: the cave lion. Larger than modern African lions, cave lions roamed across Europe, Asia, and parts of North America during various points throughout ancient human history, and unlike modern lions that generally avoid humans when possible, cave lions coexisted with ancient humans during periods when neither species had developed strong avoidance behavior toward the other. Evidence from ancient cave sites shows clear signs of cave lion predation on ancient human remains, alongside cave paintings depicting these massive predators with a level of detailed reverence and fear that suggests ancient humans held intense respect for exactly how dangerous these animals actually were. What made cave lions especially dangerous wasn't just raw size and strength, though they certainly possessed both in devastating quantity. It was their tendency to compete directly with ancient humans for the same cave shelters that our ancestors desperately needed for protection against weather and other threats. Imagine finally locating a perfect, defensible cave shelter after searching for hours, only to discover a cave lion had already claimed it as its own den. This wasn't a rare inconvenience. Archaeological evidence suggests ancient humans and cave lions frequently competed for the exact same limited shelter resources across shared territory, creating a dangerous, ongoing rivalry where losing this particular real estate negotiation could easily mean death. Now let's discuss something that sounds almost too dramatic to be real, but absolutely was: the saber-toothed cat. These predators, featuring those unmistakable elongated canine teeth capable of delivering devastating puncture wounds to large prey, represented a different kind of danger compared to more typical big cats. Their hunting strategy relied heavily on ambush tactics, using powerful forelimbs to pin down prey before delivering a precise, lethal bite. For ancient humans, this meant danger could emerge from seemingly nowhere, with essentially zero warning before an attack, since saber-toothed cats excelled specifically at concealment and sudden, overwhelming ambush rather than prolonged chase. Here's something worth appreciating regarding just how mismatched this particular confrontation would have been from a purely physical standpoint. An adult saber-toothed cat could weigh several hundred pounds, possessed lethal natural weaponry, and had spent millions of years of evolutionary refinement perfecting the exact art of killing large mammals efficiently. An ancient human, by comparison, arrived to this confrontation with comparatively soft skin, minimal natural weaponry beyond whatever tools they happened to be carrying, and speed that couldn't hope to match a dedicated ambush predator specifically evolved for explosive, short-distance attacks. Surviving repeated encounters with animals this dangerous required ancient humans to develop serious situational awareness, since the margin for error when facing a saber-toothed cat was essentially non-existent. Let's shift towards something that might surprise people expecting only large, obviously dangerous predators on this particular list: the short-faced bear. This massive predator, standing considerably taller than modern grizzly bears when reared up on its hind legs, represented one of the largest land predators ancient humans ever needed to coexist alongside. Unlike many modern bears that rely heavily on plant material for a significant portion of their diet, evidence suggests short-faced bears were considerably more carnivorous, meaning encountering one wasn't simply a matter of avoiding territorial aggression, but potentially facing an animal actively looking for a meal. What made the short-faced bear particularly dangerous was a combination of raw size, respectable speed, despite its bulk, and a build specifically suited toward chasing down prey across open terrain, rather than relying purely on ambush tactics like many other predators on this list. This meant ancient humans couldn't necessarily rely on simply avoiding dense cover or specific ambush-prone terrain features to reduce their risk, since a short-faced bear was perfectly capable of running down prey across open ground if it decided pursuit was worthwhile. Facing a predator this large, this fast, and this comfortable hunting across varied terrain left ancient humans with limited options beyond serious preventive caution and reliable group coordination during any encounter. Now here's a predator that deserves serious respect, specifically because of its intelligence and pack coordination, rather than pure individual size. The dire wolf. While individually smaller than some of the other predators we've discussed, dire wolves hunted in coordinated packs, using sophisticated group strategy to overwhelm prey that might otherwise successfully defend against a single predator. This pack hunting approach made dire wolves particularly dangerous toward ancient human groups, since defending against a coordinated, multi-directional attack required different strategy compared to facing a single large predator approaching from one obvious direction. Ancient humans facing dire wolf packs likely needed to develop specific defensive formations and communication strategies, since successfully fending off a coordinated pack attack required the entire group working together effectively, rather than relying on individual bravery or strength alone. This pressure toward sophisticated group coordination during predator threat likely reinforced broader ancient human social cooperation more generally, since communities that successfully developed reliable group defense strategies against pack predators like dire wolves probably transferred some of that same cooperative instinct toward other survival challenges as well. Let's talk about something considerably smaller in individual size, but arguably just as dangerous when you consider sheer numbers and persistence. Ancient crocodilians. Ancient humans living near rivers, lakes, and wetland environments faced serious risk from massive crocodilian predators, some considerably larger than modern crocodile species, lurking patiently beneath water surfaces waiting for exactly the right moment to strike. Unlike land-based predators that at least offered some visual warning before an attack, crocodilian ambush predation could occur with essentially zero advance notice, striking the instant an ancient human ventured close enough to the water's edge for drinking, fishing, or crossing a river. This particular danger created a difficult survival tension for ancient communities, since water access remained absolutely essential for basic survival despite the serious predation risk it simultaneously represented. Communities couldn't simply avoid water sources entirely, meaning ancient humans needed to develop careful protocols around water access, likely including group supervision during water collection, careful observation of water surfaces before approaching, and probably plenty of hard-learned lessons passed down through cautionary storytelling after inevitable tragic encounters occurred within different communities across generations. Now let's examine something worth appreciating regarding a predator that operated according to an entirely different strategy compared to everything else we've discussed so far: the giant hyena. Unlike modern hyenas that often get unfairly dismissed as purely opportunistic scavengers, ancient hyena species were frequently capable, aggressive hunters in their own right, sometimes hunting in large coordinated packs capable of overwhelming even substantial prey, through sheer numbers and relentless persistence. Their powerful jaws, among the strongest bite forces of any mammalian predator, meant that once a giant hyena pack successfully cornered prey, escape became difficult. What made giant hyenas particularly unsettling from an ancient human perspective was their willingness to actively target human camps and food stores rather than exclusively pursuing wild prey out in open terrain. Evidence suggests these predators sometimes represented persistent camp-adjacent threats, testing perimeter defenses and opportunistically targeting unprotected food stores or vulnerable, isolated individuals rather than exclusively engaging in traditional predator-prey pursuit scenarios. This meant ancient human communities needed to maintain vigilance even within supposedly secure camp locations, since giant hyenas apparently possessed both the intelligence and persistence necessary to probe for weaknesses in human defensive strategy over extended periods, rather than giving up after a single failed attempt. By the way, if you want to go even deeper into the secret lives of ancient humans, I just launched a full course called The Secret Lives of Ancient Humans. 10 modules, 3+ hours of content covering everything we never talk about on YouTube. What they feared, how they communicated, what hunted them, and much more. Plus an exclusive PDF guide included. Link in the description. See you inside. Let's shift towards something fascinating regarding a predator. Most people never consider when imagining ancient human survival challenges. Massive ancient birds of prey. Certain species of enormous raptors, some with wingspans considerably larger than any modern bird of prey, were fully capable of successfully targeting human children or smaller adults as viable prey. This represents a unique category of predation risk compared to everything else we've discussed, since danger in this case came specifically from above, an entirely different defensive challenge compared to ground-based predator threats that at least allowed for some advanced visual warning across open terrain. Ancient communities living within territory shared by these massive avian predators likely needed to develop specific protective strategies for young children, potentially including closer supervision during outdoor activities, and caution regarding open, exposed areas where a diving aerial predator could strike with minimal advance warning. This aerial predation risk adds an entirely different dimension toward understanding just how comprehensively dangerous the ancient world truly was, since threats weren't confined purely toward ground-level encounters but could emerge from literally any direction, including directly overhead. Now, here's something worth examining regarding a predator whose danger came less from individual physical power and more from sheer numbers combined with disturbing persistence. Driver ants, and similarly aggressive ancient insect swarms. While a single ant obviously posed essentially zero danger toward an adult human, certain ancient ant species formed massive, coordinated swarms capable of overwhelming considerably larger animals through sheer collective numbers and relentless, coordinated attack behavior. Communities camping too close toward an active swarm migration route could face serious injury or worse, particularly if young children or injured immobile community members found themselves unable to quickly relocate away from an approaching swarm. This particular danger category reveals something worth appreciating regarding just how comprehensive ancient human predator awareness needed to become for successful long-term survival. It wasn't simply about avoiding a handful of obvious, large, dangerous animals. Ancient humans needed detailed environmental knowledge spanning threats ranging from massive, individually overwhelming predators like cave lions and short-faced bears all the way down toward much smaller but equally dangerous collective threats like aggressive insect swarms, each requiring an entirely different awareness, strategy, and defensive response. Let's talk about something important regarding how ancient humans actually managed to survive this seemingly overwhelming gauntlet of predator threats, since simply cataloging danger without exploring successful adaptation would paint an incomplete, overly pessimistic picture. Fire represented perhaps the single most transformative defensive tool ancient humans developed specifically toward managing predator risk. Most large predators, cave lions, and short-faced bears certainly included, showed strong natural aversion toward fire, meaning maintaining consistent flame through the night provided. Reliable protection that dramatically reduced successful predator attacks compared toward communities without reliable fire access. Group size and coordination represented another absolutely crucial defensive strategy, since predators generally preferred targeting isolated, vulnerable individuals rather than confronting a coordinated, alert group capable of mounting effective collective defense. This pressure toward maintaining strong group cohesion and reliable mutual protection likely reinforced broader ancient human social cooperation tendencies we've explored extensively throughout other discussions. Since communities that successfully developed reliable collective defense strategies against serious predator threat consistently demonstrated better survival outcomes compared toward more isolated or poorly coordinated groups. Weapon development also played a crucial role in gradually shifting the predator-prey dynamic increasingly toward humanity's favor over time. Early ancient humans relying purely on basic wooden clubs or simple sharpened sticks faced considerably worse odds during serious predator encounters compared toward later ancient humans equipped with sophisticated stone-tipped spears, throwing weapons, and eventually more advanced projectile technology. This gradual weapon evolution meant the specific danger level associated with any given predator species likely decreased somewhat across successive generations, as ancient human technological capability continued advancing even while the underlying predator threat itself remained largely consistent. Let's consider something worth appreciating regarding how ancient humans likely developed increasingly sophisticated environmental knowledge specifically regarding predator behavior patterns, movement routes, and seasonal activity cycles. Just as ancient hunters needed detailed knowledge regarding prey animal behavior to successfully hunt, they equally needed detailed knowledge regarding predator behavior, specifically to avoid becoming prey themselves. This likely included understanding which specific locations represented particularly dangerous ambush points, which seasons corresponded toward increased predator activity or aggression, and which subtle environmental signs might indicate a predator's recent presence nearby. Information that almost certainly got passed down carefully across generations through oral tradition and direct experiential teaching. Now, here's something worth exploring regarding how shelter selection itself became deeply intertwined with predator avoidance strategy. Ancient humans couldn't simply select camp locations based purely on convenience factors like water access or proximity toward good hunting grounds. Shelter locations needed careful evaluation regarding defensibility against predator attack, including factors like limited approach angles that predators could use for ambush, adequate visibility across surrounding terrain to spot approaching danger early, and reasonable proximity toward natural barriers or defensive terrain features that could help slow or channel a predator's approach during an actual attack scenario. Let's touch on something worth appreciating regarding just how much predator threat likely shaped broader ancient human behavioral patterns beyond purely defensive strategy. The instinct toward maintaining group proximity, avoiding excessive isolation, and staying alert even during seemingly routine daily activities almost certainly traces back significantly towards this constant, pervasive predator pressure ancient humans faced across enormous stretches of our evolutionary history. Modern humans still display measurable instinctive discomfort regarding certain environmental conditions, walking alone through dense, unfamiliar forest at night, for example, that likely represents deeply ingrained evolutionary caution inherited directly from ancestors who faced serious predator danger under comparable circumstances. Let's also examine something worth considering regarding how this predator pressure likely varied considerably across different ancient human populations, depending on specific regional geography and climate. Populations living within dense forest environments faced different predator challenges compared toward populations inhabiting open savanna, while communities near major water sources dealt with crocodilian threats that simply didn't apply toward populations living in more arid, water-scarce regions. This regional variation meant ancient human predator avoidance strategy wasn't universally identical, but rather carefully adapted toward specific local threats, similar toward how other survival knowledge and cultural practice varied considerably depending on regional environmental circumstances. Now, here's something fascinating worth pondering regarding the broader evolutionary implications of facing such consistent, serious predator pressure throughout ancient human history. Some researchers argue that this sustained predator threat likely served as a significant evolutionary pressure specifically favoring increased human intelligence, cooperative behavior, and technological innovation. Communities that developed better predator avoidance strategy, more effective defensive weapons, and stronger collective coordination consistently demonstrated improved survival outcomes. meaning predator pressure may have inadvertently accelerated exactly the kind of cognitive and social development that eventually allowed humans toward gradually shifting from primarily prey species toward increasingly dominant apex predator status ourselves. Let's briefly consider something worth appreciating regarding just how remarkable this eventual transition was, especially when you properly account for just how many formidable predators ancient humans successfully learned to survive alongside and eventually even outcompete across countless thousands of years. Cave lions, saber-toothed cats, short-faced bears, dire wolf packs, ancient crocodilians, giant hyenas, massive aerial predators, and aggressive insect swarms all represented serious threats capable of ending an ancient human's life with minimal warning. Yet gradually, through fire mastery, weapon development, sophisticated group cooperation, and detailed environmental knowledge passed carefully across generations, ancient humans steadily transformed from a species facing constant predation risk toward eventually becoming the dominant force shaping entire ecosystems. This transition wasn't quick, and it certainly wasn't guaranteed. Countless individual ancient humans almost certainly lost their lives to exactly the predators we've discussed throughout this exploration, their stories lost entirely to time since no surviving descendants remained to preserve their specific experience within oral tradition. Every single successful survival story that eventually contributed toward modern human population represents an unbroken chain of ancestors who successfully avoided, outsmarted, or occasionally directly confronted lethal predators across countless dangerous encounters spanning enormous stretches of evolutionary time. So, what does all of this ultimately reveal about the predator gauntlet ancient humans successfully navigated throughout our species' long history? It reveals that our current position as Earth's dominant species wasn't some inevitable, guaranteed outcome, but rather the result of countless generations successfully surviving serious predator threats through increasingly sophisticated cooperation, technology, and accumulated environmental knowledge. Cave lions weren't simply an occasional dramatic threat reserved for museum dioramas and documentary narration. They represented persistent danger that ancient humans needed to successfully navigate on a regular basis across enormous stretches of shared territory and time. The same holds true for every other predator we've explored throughout this discussion, each representing serious risk that shaped ancient human behavior, technology, and social structure in ways that continue influencing human psychology even today. Next time you're walking through a completely safe, thoroughly modern environment, perhaps a well-lit parking lot or a quiet suburban street at night, and you notice that faint, instinctive prickle of unease regarding unfamiliar darkness or unexpected movement nearby, take a moment to appreciate that this deeply ingrained caution likely traces directly back toward countless ancient human generations who faced serious, life-threatening predator danger on a regular, ongoing basis. That instinct isn't some outdated, irrelevant evolutionary leftover. It represents a direct inheritance from ancestors who successfully survived facing down cave lions, saber-toothed cats, and countless other formidable predators, using exactly this kind of careful vigilance to ensure their genetic legacy successfully continued forward across countless generations, eventually leading directly toward you.